to the kitchen at Thuya Hill. As usual, I am delighted to have you here today because we are going to be doing something that is considered a rite of passage in some ways for the housewife. When it's spring and summer, there is nothing cozier or more homey than making a beautiful jar of homemade jam. And that's exactly what we're going to be doing today. So I have gone to my local farm stand and picked up a generous amount of these beautiful local strawberries that were actually just picked this morning. And so what could be better with a huge glut of strawberries than to make some homemade strawberry preserves? So that is exactly what we're going to do today, and I can't wait to have you join me. So let's get started. Okay, so for jam, there are as many different recipes and thoughts on jam as there are stars in the sky, it seems at times. So many people have strong opinions about how to do it. So there's two different ways that you can make jams and jellies from high acid fruits like strawberries. Today we are going to utilize a method called the open kettle method. And this is a little bit controversial, especially if you're in the US, but this recipe is very commonly used in places like England and Canada. And so because we're using a British recipe today, I'm going to be carrying out the recipe exactly as instructed. And that is using the hot pack method or open kettle method. With this method, you're heating the fruit up to a boil, and you're also using lots of sugar as a preserving agent as well. And you are putting that hot jam into sterilized hot jars and sealing it by putting it upside down. If the jars don't seal, you can just stick the ones that didn't seal in the fridge to use fresh, or you can reheat the jam and use the water bath method. There is a fantastic article written by a master preserver named Camilla Wynn, and I will leave her article in the link below. She is from Canada, and she writes an entire article of why the hot pack method for high acid, high sugar jams is perfectly fine. Again, this method is only for high acid, high sugar content jams and not for other home canned products. If you can low acid vegetables or fruits, you will need to use a pressure canner. I have a few of my favorite resources as it relates to canning, and they are all so different. But I really like different perspectives, and I like the science behind why people do what they do. And so I appreciate all of these books for different reasons. This first one is called Preserving Food Without Freezing or Canning, and it's traditional techniques of canning from the gardeners and farmers of Terre Vivante. Terre Vivante farm is in France, and these are age-old recipes and techniques that people have been using for centuries. This book is so interesting. It will give you a really eye-opening perspective on how people have been safely preserving food for hundreds of years. So I highly recommend this book. In this book, there is a section on jams, and all of the recipes that I can see use the hot pack method. So this is a good one to have. And then this is a fantastic book by Christine Ferber, a YouTube friend of mine called The Fresh Pea Cooks. Did a video on jam many years ago, and in it she talked about this book, and the moment I watched her video I thought, I've got to have that book. She uses the hot pack method. She does sterilize her jars in a hot oven, which I would do, but my oven is currently on the fritz, so I am sanitizing my jars in the dishwasher on the hottest cycle possible. The other book that everybody should have, in my opinion, is the Ball Blue Book of Preserving. In this book, they do not recommend the hot pack method. In fact, I believe almost every recipe is either pressure canning or water bath canning, and it's a really solid reference to have for both recipes and the science behind why they do what they do. They're well researched, and they're a book you can really hang your hat on if you have questions about preserving. When it comes to the European way of canning jams, I have a stack of articles right here, different recipes, but they all can jam the same way. The ratios of sugar and lemon juice and fruit might be slightly different, but every single one of these articles, and I have an article from BBC Food, from Good Housekeeping UK, from Mary Berry, Le Parfait, the list goes on and on and on. And each of these high acid, high sugar jam recipes do the exact same thing when it comes to canning. They boil the jam, they put the jam into hot jars, they seal them, and that's it. All right, without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. This recipe is from Le Parfait. They have fantastic jars, they have great education courses on jam making and preserving, and I will leave their link in the description below. So let's get started washing our berries and weighing them out. gone ahead and rinsed our strawberries so that they're nice and clean. And now I'm going to hull them and then I will weigh them. All the tops have been taken off. And now I am going to weigh them, and then I will cut them in half and put them into my pot. Okay, so I'm gonna need 1.2 kilograms of strawberries for this recipe, so I'm gonna go ahead and weigh that out now with my kitchen scale. Now I'm gonna cut my strawberries in half because they are a little bit big, some of them, and this will just make for a better consistency in my jam. All right, I've gone ahead and sliced my strawberries, so they're in halves now. And now we're gonna measure out 1.2 kilograms of white sugar. What I love about this process is it's not a very futzy process. You can just kind of do it in an afternoon when you want a few jars of jam at your disposal. I personally love jam. I think it's one of life's sweetest pleasures, no pun intended. So I'm happy to have some on hand. All right, so 1.2 kilograms of pure cane sugar. This recipe calls for the juice from 1 lemon. And what lemon is additional pectin. So what pectin does is it helps the jam to set. And even though these high acid fruits like strawberries already have their own natural pectin, the addition of lemon juice just helps kind of further along that setting process as well. One other thing I forgot to mention is you're going to want to put a plate in the freezer so that you can do the jam setting test, and I'll explain more about that later. With some recipes, they have the lemon juice, the sugar, and the strawberries macerating for several hours to release some of the liquids. I'm not going to do that today because I don't have a lot of time, so we're just going to go ahead and cut this lemon and mix it with the strawberries and allow it to just sit on the stove for a couple minutes before we add the sugar. Okay, so now we're gonna add the juice from our lemon into our strawberries. And we're gonna bring this over to the stove to heat it up for just a few minutes before adding the sugar. One thing I really love about this recipe is that it takes some of the intimidation out of preserving. Oftentimes we can think of the process as taking the entire day, but with something like this, it just takes a little bit of time to preserve a small glut of fruit, and you've got fresh homemade jam in just a couple of hours, not the whole day. All right, as you can see here, the jam is starting to come together and it's getting foamy and it's boiling. And now from this point, we're going to cook it for about another 15 to 20 minutes on low to medium heat. We put a spoon of the hot jam onto our frozen plate. We're gonna push it up and see if it wrinkles. And this looks like it's setting perfectly. So we're gonna go ahead and call that good enough. Another thing you can do to ensure that your jam will set is to check the temperature. And according to Camilla Wayne, it should be at 194 to ensure a good set. So let's check that now. All right, our jam is actually up to 220, so it's well over 194. So we are ready to go ahead and put it into jars. I'm gonna take out my jars one at a time from the dishwasher, and I'm gonna go ahead and use my funnel to fill them. All right. One thing I'm gonna need to do before I fill my jars is I need to skim my jam, which you can just do by taking a spoon and taking the foam off the top. Okay, we have gone ahead and skimmed our jam, and now we're gonna go ahead and our next step is to ladle our hot jam into our canning jars. And we're gonna fill the jars about 1/4 inch from the top. We're gonna take our clean and sanitized lids and put them on top and flip our jam over. the lid on, flip it over. All right, my friends, that is it. That sums up our preservation endeavors with our strawberry jam. This has been such a delight to do today, and I hope you enjoyed it as much as I have. We have got ourselves 4 beautiful jars of homemade jam, and I hope that you enjoyed the process as much as I have. So if you have any questions, please feel free to leave them in the comments below. And as usual, I thank you so much for coming back to Thuya Hill for today's video, and I look forward very much to seeing you in the next one. Goodbye for now.